Hello, hello, good evening. I apologize for the lighting. I forgot how bad the lighting is in this room. And of course, when I was packing, I did not remember to bring my portable light with me. So I apologize. As y'all can see, I am still here in Scotland. I will be heading back home to Mexico City this weekend. Um, so yeah. Um, hope everybody is having a good week so far. Um, I thought today was National 401k Day. It popped up on my Google Calendar. And so I thought, oh, how fortuitous. National 401k Day is on Tuesday. I go live on YouTube on Tuesday. Turns out National 401k Day was Friday, September 5th. Um, I'm not sure how that ended up on my calendar for today. Apparently, it is the Friday after Labor Day, but we're not going to let that stop us from talking about 401ks today. Um, because I'm going to guess that you have heard some people say that you should be putting money in a 401k. Or maybe if you're on TikTok or you're on YouTube or even on Reddit, you've seen those posts people have made about how 401ks are the biggest scam around. Um, I thought in honor of National 401k Day that we would like try and make sense of all of this and cut through the nonsense and get down to what is the actual truth. But first, in case you are new to the channel, welcome. My name is Adelia Aborishade, although most people know me as Picky Girl Travels the World. I am a financial educator and coach who likes to share the stuff that I know, and that includes all of that money stuff that nobody taught you when you were growing up, the ins and outs of solo travel, as well as what it is like to live in another country and how you can too. If that is your kind of party, you have found your people on the internet. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. By subscribing, that is really the only way to make sure that YouTube keeps sending my videos to your feed. So I'll give you a moment to do that if you haven't done it already. Um, so yay. To all of you joining me live tonight, hello. Thanks for coming to hang out. For the folks who are watching on the replay, thank you for tuning in as well. All right. So, like I said, I I was mistaken thinking today was National 401k Day. It was actually Friday. But still a good thing for us to talk about. I had gone down a bit of a rabbit hole and was shocked by the number of posts and videos and reels I saw from people being like, 401ks are on some bullshit. You don't need one. You shouldn't have one. And so that got me thinking like, okay, how much of this is true? How much of this is hyperbole? Let's get to it. And so I figured we'd kind of start talking about the basics, like what is a 401k? Um, is it a pension? From my experience with clients, there seems to be a bit of confusion here about what a 401k is. 401k references a section of the tax code, but it is an employer sponsored plan. If you were like I used to be and you work for a school district or the city or the county, you might not have a 401k. You might have access to something called a 403b. Kind of works the same way. Or maybe you're one of the lucky people who have access to a 457 plan. All three of those sort of do the same thing, generally speaking. It is not a pension. It is an employer sponsored plan that allows you to put money aside for your retirement. And if you're thinking, that sounds a lot like a pension, um, yes and no. Pensions, and those of you that that still have access to them, you are super, super lucky. A pension was, yes, employer sponsored, employer supported, employer funded. That if you worked for your employer for a certain number of years, they would pay you a certain amount of your, or some formula calculation of your salary after you retire for so many years or for the rest of your life. The difference there is the pension, the expense, the money that funded your retirement came from the employer. With a 401k, um, the money comes from you. They sponsor the plan, but it is your money. Um, so that let's clear that up right off the bat. Okay, so it is not a pension. And if you think about it from the employer's point of view, you can see why employers would prefer 401ks to pensions, because a 401k is going to be a whole lot cheaper for them than a pension will. And so 401ks have been around since the 80s. But since then, over the last, what is that, 40 years, 45 years, um, more and more companies have shifted away from pensions. And now the burden of funding your retirement is primarily on you. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I think it depends on your perspective. And we can talk about that if y'all want. Okay, so we know that a 401k is not a pension. Um, did you know that there are different kinds of 401ks? There is a traditional 401k and there's a Roth 401k. Traditional, your employer takes your contribution to the 401k out of your paycheck pre-tax. A Roth 401k takes your contribution out of your check post tax. Why does that matter? There are different rules, about when you pay taxes or if you have to pay taxes at all. And if y'all want, we can get into what those differences are. But right now, I'm just kind of keeping things general. The other thing to know about a 401k or a 403b or a 457 is how much money you can put in each year. If you are under age 50, you can set it up. Most employers allow you to put a percentage of your salary in the 401k. But you can contribute up to $23,500 if you are under age 50. If you are over age 50, there is a catch-up provision which allows you to put in the 23.5, but also add in an extra $7,500, so that maybe if earlier in your career you were not in a position to contribute money, with the catch up provision you can try and make up for those years you didn't contribute. um so that's what a 401k is. I don't know about y'all, but so far I haven't heard anything super scammy. um, why would you want to? Why are there those people on the internet that are like, girl, you better get you a 401k. What are you doing? Why don't you have one? There are some advantages to having a 401k. things like the power of compounding, the fact that you can put money in a 401k and choose investments. Let me back up a little bit because this is probably, yeah, I think this might be the biggest confusing thing for most people, because the way we talk about 401ks, we talk about them like they themselves are an investment. They are not. They are simply an account that can hold your investments. So you put the money in the 401k, but then you still got to pick the investments. Just putting the money in the account is not doing anything. But I wanted to show y'all this. Okay, hold on. Share my screen. Um, share screen. Which screen do I want to share? This one. Okay. So we were talking about the power of compounding. Did you realize that you could be a millionaire in 18 years? Um, this chart right here basically looks at the composition of a portfolio, the kind of historical return that portfolio has gotten, and how long it would take you to be a 401k millionaire. That is one of the big selling points on accounts like 401ks, is that they can be a pathway to building wealth, to literally you becoming a millionaire. Now, if you look, if you had a portfolio that was 100% equity or stock, and it returned the historical average, it would take you 18 years. Um, and then you compare that to the one at the very bottom, cash. Uh-huh. Notice that it returns historically 1%. And honestly, I think that's being generous given what a lot of savings accounts pay in interest. This is all working on the assumption of a 0% starting balance, contributing $18,500 a year until you hit $1 million. So, um, that is one of, I think, the benefits, or one of the cool things about a 401k account. Now, if it's a traditional 401k, you're putting that money to the side pre-tax. So you investing it and doing all of that, it is growing tax deferred. If you are putting that money into a Roth IRA, I mean, Roth 401k, excuse me, Roth 401k, you're putting in the money post tax, but it grows tax free. So if we use this example here, you put in your $18,500 a year for, let's say, the 18 years. You put that much amount, well, no, yeah, you put that amount in post tax and it grows to $1 million or 2 million or 3 million. You never have to pay taxes on that. That sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me. That does not sound like a scam. Um, so you get the power of compounding. You can become a millionaire, tax deferred or tax free growth. Another benefit I think a lot of people overlook is by contributing to, um, ooh, what's happening here? By contributing to a 401k, you lower your taxable income right now. So you could pay less money in income taxes and at the same time be putting money aside and investing it and doing that. That sounds pretty cool to me. Um, so you lower your taxable income now, and Brown Girls Invest Too already mentioned it in the chat. Probably another big advantage is the employer match. Now, when I had access to a 403B, because I worked at a school district in Texas, we did not get employer matches. So I have always been low key jealous of those of you who did get them. But yes, the employer match, that is literally free money your employer will give you for putting money aside for your retirement. Uh, that is free money, and we don't leave free money on the table around here. And here's the other thing: there are a lot of different ways to skin a cat. There are a lot of ways to build wealth. There are a lot of ways to make money, but doing it through like investing with a 401k, it's low lift. It doesn't have to mean like an extra 20 hours every week because you've got to, run a business, manage real estate, or whatever. It's fairly low lift. Now, I know some of y'all like high lift projects. I do not. I want I want the stuff that feels the least like work. So for somebody like me, this is a very attractive option. Um Unfortunately, 403Bs are not regulated as heavily and they underperform more because of the insurance products in them. Bingo. Although back when I got my 403B, I did not know a lot of stuff. I knew enough not to get an annuity, which a lot of my teacher friends did. And yes, those underperform. They're incredibly expensive and are difficult to get out of. So I at least had enough on the ball to put my money in some fairly decent mutual funds, but an employer match would have been nice. It would have been. All right. So far, this don't sound all that scammy to me, but like I told y'all, I went down this rabbit hole and it started with a post by a guy named, what is his name? Grant Cardone. Um, yeah, he made this post about how 401ks are the biggest scam ever. And some of the reasons he gave, I don't know, they sound plausible on the surface, but really when you look at them, I don't know. Y'all can tell me. All right. So some of the things the folks who are like, "Oh, don't waste your time with a 401k. It's super scammy, blah blah blah." Some of the things that those people bring up is that your money is locked up when it's in a 401k. You can't get your money out without a lot of expense and a lot of hassle. Is that true? Yes and no. Um, because of the advantages we talked about, okay, remember a 401k, 403b, 457, all of those all exist because they are in the tax code. Uncle Sam is not going to let you put money aside pre-tax without making sure he gets his in the end. Okay, that is something to remember. And so there is definitely a trade-off. When you put money in your 401k, it is intended to be for your retirement. And the US government has decided that that should not be before you are 59 and a half. And so if you try to pull the money out before you are 59 and a half, one, Uncle Sam wants the taxes. I don't think that's ridiculous because the agreement was, hey, I'm going to let you put this money to the side and you don't have to pay taxes now if you don't touch the money until you're 59 and a half. If you pull it out before then, you're going back on the deal. And to me, if you don't like the terms of that deal, don't choose this option. Um, so is your money locked up? I don't know. I don't feel like it is. Um, so to me, it seems reasonable that Uncle Sam would ask for the tax money that you've avoided paying. But there are also fines or penalties, excuse me, penalties if you pull the money out before you are 59 and a half. Um, and so, if this is money you think you might need, I don't think the place for you to, if you think you're going to need this money before you're 59 and a half, putting it in a 401k and investing it there is probably not the best move for you. So that was one way he called it a scam, was that, you can't get your money out of it easily and without some cost. Um, Another argument that he made was that you don't know which companies are receiving your money. That when you invest in your put money in your 401k, and like, I don't know. He makes it sound like you put the money in your 401k and then you no longer have control over it. And I disagree with that characterization. We talked about a little bit earlier, um, that in 403b's, this really isn't allowed in 401ks, but in 403b's, one of the options, the investment, in air quotes here, heavy on the air quotes, one of the investments that are offered to people often with a 403b are often insurance products. And those are, eh, we can get into those in another time, but this idea that you have no control over where your money goes in your 401k, I disagree with that characterization. Now, it does depend on your employer what kinds of options would be available to you. People with who work for larger companies are probably going to have a much wider choice of funds available to them. But this is one of those situations where if you ask the questions, you can probably get the answers. So you get a new job and they are doing your HR paperwork and they sign you up for the retirement. It is on you. The onus is on you to ask, can I see the plan documents? Can you give me a list of the available funds? A lot of the people who I end up working with never ask those questions. And the people running the plan in HR just simply sign them up for a target date fund based on their age. So this is one of those places where you have to be proactive here. Um, and ask some questions. So this idea that your money goes in there and you don't get to say, I want it to go into this fund, or let's say you have a what's the word? There are certain types of companies, like you don't want to invest in for-profit prisons. Now, the people in HR are probably not going to be able to easily tell you which of the funds they have available invest in private prisons, but they should be able to give you a list of those funds, and then you can do your due diligence and go through and look at their holdings and see if they meet your standards. Does that make sense? So I disagree with his characterization that you don't know who or what you're investing in. Another claim that he made, uh, Helene said, what 401k is he dealing with? I was able to go in and see prospectuses, the fees, the provider's information, and so I can make decisions on the funds. Yeah. That's why I say I completely disagree with that characterization that he was making. Um, because they're definitely not just going to hand that information to you, but this is where you being a good consumer or being a good steward of your money, you're going to speak up and you're going to ask some questions. Um, Another thing he mentioned was there is the risk of losing your retirement the risk of losing your money in the retirement account due to administrative fees. Now, I am not going to pretend like fees are not a thing, because they actually are, and they are a way that a lot of people lose a significant portion of their their nest egg. Um, but this idea that like all of your money will evaporate because of fees, again, I feel like he's mischaracterizing things. Um, as I mentioned, my investment style is what is easy, also what is cheap. Um, One of the biggest ways to increase your investment return is to keep fees as low as possible. And so, again, just like you ask the question, can I get the list of fees available? And Aline mentioned, you go through and you looked at those funds. Do they have fees associated with them? Are there costs associated with making trades? Those kinds of things. Um, you can mitigate the expenses associated with fees in such a way you can set up a low cost portfolio, and that is not an issue at all. And as I kept reading through his post, he then was like, oh, real estate makes a much better investment choice for retirement. And I think for some people, it does. Because his argument was that with real estate, you could leverage your real estate sooner and generate a monthly cash flow from a property. There are a bunch of like tax write offs you get with real estate investments that you don't get with other things. That's all true. But if you are somebody like me, that's not being a landlord managing real estate is not attractive. um and so one of the things I've always preached is you got to invest. I'm not here to tell you how to invest. I want you to know all of the different options available to you. But you make the choice uh how you want to invest. But for me, as somebody who looks for things that are low lift, low effort, stock market investing has worked out for me. Brown girls travel in Brown girls invest too makes a good point. You can't sell it whenever you want, because that's the thing. Somebody's got to want to buy it, and they've got to be willing to pay the price that you want to sell. Because one of the things I hear a lot about when people talk about, oh, I'm gonna invest in real estate, I'm gonna buy land. You got to think about any investment. Either it generates income, like you can buy funds or stocks that pay dividends, or you buy real estate that you can have rental income on, or um, or it increases in value and you sell it. That's true in the stock market. That is also true when you're talking about real estate. But somebody's got to be willing to pay the price that you just having it doesn't make you money. You either have to make money via rent or you make money when you sell it. And just because you want to sell it, real estate is incredibly illiquid. Just because you want to sell it doesn't mean you can. I just saw a thing the other day about, was it 500,000? I can't remember the exact number. Let me not give you a made up number. But basically, we are at a point where the number of people who want to sell homes far exceeds the number of people who want to buy. And we've not been in that situation in quite a while. And so they're very nervous about what that's going to mean moving forward. Uh, who said that? Y'all, the way I cannot see this is so tiny. Carmen said, high wealth people think differently. Yeah, they do. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that. I was gonna say, y'all are not on this channel watching my video for high wealth information. I just keep it real and make it plain. Um, okay. What changes are these? Which changes are these? Are these to 401ks like retirement accounts? I'm almost scared to ask. Um, so this guy Grant Cardone, and like I said, I've seen quite a few reels, TikToks, things like that, Reddit posts where there is this particular group of financial influencer who is trying to dissuade people from using a 401k. And I am not saying that investment accounts like 401ks are the be all and end all and they are the perfect solution. But I think it is important that we acknowledge and are aware of the benefits, the ways in which it might benefit us, as well as, what are some of the potential drawbacks. Now, one of the thing I want to remind you of, because is you may have had a 401k, a 403b, a 457 at some job that you did not have for very long, or maybe it was a job way back when you wasn't even thinking about investing or retirement. And do you know what happened to it? A lot of folks don't. The most recent number I saw was that there are over 29 million lost or abandoned 401k accounts. And the killer is in those accounts is no, is $1.65 trillion that's just out there, not benefiting anybody because folks forgot about their account. They got a new job and didn't know what they were supposed to do to move that money to their new job or roll it over or what have you. So, this is my periodic PSA reminder to you that take a moment and think about your employment journey. Could there be a retirement account out there that you forgot about that's got some money in it? Now, unless you are retirement age, I'm not telling you to take that money out, but you could be benefiting from that money, rolling it into your existing portfolio or the plan at your current job or what have you. There is an article from Kiplinger linked in the description that has like 9 or 10 different ways you can go about finding that money if you have some out there. I did a video a few years ago. Uh, uh, I did a video a few years ago about finding your old 401k, or if you know you have one but you're like, I don't know what to do with it, what to do with it. That video is linked in the description as well, and I just dropped it in the chat as well. So if you think there might be money, you don't I say, even if you're unsure, take a look, go through it. I wish I wish there was some money for me to claim, but unfortunately there is not. Oh, okay. Brown girls invest too. Yes, I am aware of the change that they made that will allow basically is serving all of us up that have retirement accounts to private equity, crypto scammers, and all of that. Um, I am very concerned and very fearful that a lot of folks are going to end up losing their money. I think I don't like those changes. In case y'all can't tell, I'm very concerned about that. So yeah. So if you think you've got an old 401k out there, try and find it. And like I said, I posted a link to the video in the chat. The video is linked in the description where I talk about, okay, so you've one, how to find your money. Two, once you find it, what are your options? What are the things you can do with it? Um, yeah, this article is assuming his audience doesn't know much about 401ks, 403bs, Ross, etc. A lot of the content, unfortunately, a lot of the content that the financial influencers make is is kind of clickbaity, uh, and a lot of people don't know about those things. And so that's one of the reasons it gets engaged with a lot. So, and that's part of the reason I felt compelled to mark National 401k Day and come and talk about this with y'all. So, we talked about abandoned accounts. Now, here's the thing. If you are considering retiring early, and I use the word retiring with air quotes because y'all know how I feel about that. I don't think we need to think about retirement. It is basically, when do you want to become work optional? When do you want to get off the hamster wheel? Whenever that is. If that is 59 and a half, if that is 65, is it really 65? Or do you want it to be 45? Um, if that is your plan, like you want to become work optional much earlier than the government thinks you should, um, there are some concerns for you when we're talking about accounts like 401ks, IRAs that have that age stipulation attached to them. Um, because a 401k, an IRA, you have to be 59 and a half in order to avoid the penalties. Like I said, they say it all the time. There you can't avoid death, you can't avoid taxes, okay? But that 10% penalty can be a lot. So, if you don't want to wait to tap that money until you are 49 and a half, um, what what are your options? Okay. Uh are you turning 55 this year? But a lot of people don't know about the rule of 55. You can Google IRS rule of 55. If you turn 55 or older, so basically 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, during the calendar year where you either lose your job or you leave your job, you can start taking distributions from that 401k without paying the early withdrawal penalty. I'll say that again. Rule of 55. If it has to be the calendar year that you turn 55 or 56, 57, 58, 59, um, and you get laid off, you choose to leave that job, you can start taking contributions from your 401k. Now, here's the thing, it has to be the 401k account of that job. You can't, if you had another 401k that you rolled over into an IRA. You can't touch that one. You can only touch the money in the 401k of the job that you are leaving. Okay. Um, if you are a public safety employee, for you, it's actually the rule of 50. So that's like police, firefighter, EMT. You have to double check this, but those people, they get an extra 5 years. So it would be the year that they turn 50. Um, like I said, you can only withdraw from the plan specific to your most recent employer. You cannot, once you start taking those early withdrawals, you can't decide, oh, I want to roll over this into an IRA. You can't do that. The balance must stay in the employer's 401k while you are taking your early withdrawals. But here's something I had never heard anybody talk about this before is, let's say you do rule of 55 because you tired of them people, you tired of that job. You leave the job, you're turning 55, you start taking distributions from that 401k. In a year or two, you're like, you know what? I think I want to go back to work. You can, and you can continue to take distributions from that last employer's 401k. So that's one option if you are looking to tap quote unquote retirement money early. Something else that you can do is leverage the contributions you've made to a Roth account. Remember what we said earlier. The money you put in the Roth account is post tax, it's after tax money. You've already paid Uncle Sam that money. The contributions you make to a Roth account, that is a Roth IRA, that is a Roth 401k, that is always your money that you can take out without penalty. Notice I said contributions. So your max contribution, if you are under 50 years old, is $23,500. So let's say you did that for 10 years. That is $235,000. $235,000 that you have contributed to your retirement account. If you made those as Roth contributions after tax, you can always pull that money out because you've already paid the tax on it. There is no penalty. So some people, if they are choosing to retire quote unquote early, plan to tap their contributions until they get to 59 and a half, when they can take out the growth that has happened without any penalty. So that's another option you have. Another option, if you're going to retire early, and this is where you need to think long and hard about, how much do I give to my 401k and how much do I put, let's say, in a taxable brokerage account? Because with that, you can touch that money whenever you want. What is the girl's name? Female in Finance, I think is her name. I'm on her email list, and she was talking about how she never maxed out her 401k at this job that she had because she knew she wanted to retire early. So she put enough into the 401k to get the employer match. But then she put money in her Roth, and then she put money in her taxable account. So if you are somebody who you do not want to wait until you are 59 and a half, do not put all of your retirement money in a 401k. You need to put it in places that you can access it before you are 59 and a half. That might be Roth contributions, that might be a taxable brokerage account, or that might be some real estate that generates income that can carry you until you are 59 and a half. Um, I got one more bullet point to hit on my list, and then I will take questions. Those of you that have asked questions, I have starred them to come back to. If you got a question, now would be the time to drop it in the chat. Um, I also mentioned not only do the people who are retiring early need to think extra about their relationship with their 401k, but so do the people who are retiring abroad. Okay. Um, we are not trying to avoid taxes. Maybe because you can't. Not really. Um, but we want to be strategic when we think about taxes and which places make sense, you know, particularly if your journey is going to take you out of the United States. There are something well, here's the thing I want. If I'm talking to you, if you're somebody who is going to retire outside the United States and you've got money in a 401k, hopefully you've got it in some other places too. Something I want you to consider is when you start taking distributions from that 401k, you are going to be taxed on it like it is regular income. So, why does that matter? In a lot of foreign countries that are looking to attract American retirees, they will often say things like, well, we won't tax your pension. We won't tax your Social Security. Well, if all of your money is coming from a 401k, that's not going to benefit you because remember, 401k is not a pension. The money as you take it out of your 401k is considered taxable income in the US. And in a lot of foreign countries, it will probably also be considered taxable income. So, depending on your age now, if you are in your 20s and you know your time in the United States, your 20s and 30s, and you know that your time in the United States is limited, something to think about is okay, where do I want to put the money? What accounts make the most sense? Um, can I structure it in such a way that I can lessen my tax situation? For instance, there are some countries, and I can tell you some of them. Give me a second. There are some countries who do not tax uh, dividends. They don't tax um, or they lower the tax on capital gains, dividends. They use specific language like that. Um, like Cyprus, uh, Greece has this plan where they will tax you 7% on all foreign income for 15 years. And that includes things like dividends, interest, capital gains. And so I guess that's really the message here is if your plan is ultimately to retire abroad, think and the countries you are considering, one other checkbox you want to look at is how are they taxing foreign income? Are they somebody who's going to give me a break for dividend income? Because if that's the case, you might want to put a bigger chunk of your portfolio in a taxable brokerage account because that would then meet that requirement. Um, the other thing retirees abroad need to think about is your Roth account, be it a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA. Is the country you're considering moving to, do they recognize the tax-free status of that Roth? And I can tell you the vast majority of countries don't. Right now, Belgium, Canada, Estonia, France, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, and the UK. Those are the only countries that are like, yes, we know what a Roth is, and we understand that you've already paid tax on the contributions and you don't pay tax, and we won't tax you on the growth. Other countries are like, what you talking about? That Roth money, that's just regular money as far as we're concerned. There are, however, some low tax, no tax countries that, because they are super low tax or they don't have taxes like Middle Eastern countries, that the money that's, if as you take distributions from your Roth account, you're probably not going to have to pay much in taxes on that. And then there are some countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, I'd say Panama. I can't speak to which other ones in Latin America, but there's several Latin American countries that these countries don't tax foreign derived income. They have a much bigger category. So that might help you when it comes to your 401k withdrawals, because that would be foreign derived income. So if you are planning to retire abroad, where your money is in your US accounts could have an impact on your tax situation. And so that may be something you want to consider, a country that might be more friendly to the types of accounts you will be working with. Okay. All right. So, questions. I saw okay, we talked about that. Okay, we got two questions here. One, are there any benefits to invest over the company match? Okay, let's take the first question. There could be. It depends, and this is going to be individual for every person. It could be that you work at a company and in their 401k plan, they have some really incredible options. Okay. It could be that, and so it may make sense for you to invest over the match. But what most people need to do is kind of go through the, hold on, what is it? It's a math related term, not process of elimination. What is it called? Please, my dear Aunt Sally. Order of operations. Okay, there's that when it comes to like investing. So like generally first, if there is a 401k that has a employer match, you start there because you don't leave the free money on the table. Are you eligible for an HSA? If you are, you would invest there. Then most people, if they qualify because of the income cap for a Roth IRA, they put money there, max that out. Let's say you still have more money that you could be investing. That might then be the time that you open your brokerage account. So you've maxed out you've met the match on the 401k, you qualify for a HSA, you max that out, you maxed out your Roth, and you are contributing to a taxable brokerage, and you still have more money to invest. Maybe you come circle back to your 401k and put some money there. So it like I said, that answer is going to be very specific to each person. My company chooses the stock. Why can't employees choose their stock? That's an excellent question. And if I were you, I would be asking those folks at HR that very question. Is there how what's the origin of that policy? How do we go about getting that policy changed? Now, is it stocks specifically or is it funds? Can we expand the number of funds that are available? Ask the questions. A closed mouth don't get fed. So ask the questions. Okay. Um, bu- 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 Love Liaison said, I love having my 401k locked up long term because it grew steadily. Okay. What are your thoughts on making the entire allowed annual contribution to your Roth instead of a traditional IRA as a strategy for mitigating eventual RMD requirements, required minimum distributions? Okay, so let's back up for a little bit because everybody might not know what RMDs are. Remember, I said earlier, Uncle Sam is going to get his money. So let's say you put all this money in your 401k, but you also have a real estate empire. And so when it comes time to retire, you are making so much money off of your real estate empire and some other businesses. You don't even touch that money that is in the 401k. Uncle Sam said, you gon' withdraw that money because you owe me money. You owe me tax money. So that's what a required minimum distribution is. By the time you are, I think they raised it to 72, or did they raise it above 72? I can't remember. We'll go with 72. When you hit 72, that's when RMDs kick in and they look at your age, they look at how much money you got left, and they have some math formulas and they say, okay, this is how much you must take out every year because their goal is to get it depleted before you die so they can get their tax money. So going back to the question, what are my thoughts on making the entire allowed annual contribution to your Roth instead of a traditional as a strategy for mitigating RMDs? Well, um, I think you have to look at the bigger picture. In my example, somebody who's not going to touch that money generally or might not use all of that money in the tax advantaged account has other sources of retirement income. What does your situation look like? Are you setting yourself up to have other sources of money, or is it primarily from this? Okay. Um, how likely is it? Because here's the thing, you're going to pay taxes one way or the other. Is it, do I pay the taxes on the front end with the Roth account, or do I pay taxes as I pull the money out? I I'm personally somebody who's kind of like, let's split it down the middle, because there's a lot of arguments for like, oh, why you should choose a pre-tax account over a post-tax account, the traditional over the Roth. Um, we don't know the future. We don't know our income situation. So I don't think it's a bad thing to have some money that I never have to pay taxes on ever again, and have some money that is going to be taxed as regular income, because when I am over 59 and a half and I pull that money out, I will have a lower income. So I'm going to pay less in taxes in theory than I would have when I earned the money. But then there are folks who are like, "Girl, look at the situation we in. The deficit is the highest it's ever been. They're going to raise income taxes." We don't know. Are you feeling drawn one way or the other? If you are, break down the reasons of why you're feeling drawn that way, and ask yourself, what can I live with? Um, how did you decide how much to put in a 401k versus a personal brokerage account? I think this plays heavily on when and for what do you want to use the money for. If you really don't see yourself working until or not touching the money until you are 59 and a half, you would definitely want to put some money either in the Roth or in a personal brokerage, taxable brokerage account so that you can touch that money and use it for what you want to use it for before you are 59 and a half. So this is where you've got to sit down and think about how the way I'm planning to live my life, how do I envision using this money? I don't think it can hurt to have a little bit in both places. But whether or not you prioritize one account over the other, again, are you going to need the money before you are 59 and a half? Are you planning to live off of this money in a country outside the US where, depending on what kind of account it comes from, you might get more favorable tax treatment? That that would figure into my decision. Um, Cheryl, PhD, this is you didn't make this a question, but I'm gonna make it one. She said, I'm investigating the way to invest with an HSA account and if it's worth it to choose a high deductible just to get the tax advantages. HSA accounts, for those of you that don't know, are, I believe, triple tax beneficial. The money goes in pre-tax. You can invest it so it grows tax deferred. If you pull the money out to reimburse yourself for medical expenses, and you can reimburse yourself 20 years from now, it is tax free. And I believe if you don't take the money out of the account until you're over 65, there are no taxes on it as well. Um, but the only way you can get an HSA, qualify for one, is your health insurance plan has to be high deductible. And that's where you've got to look at you and whoever else would be covered by this policy and what are your out of pocket healthcare costs like? If you are somebody who has pre existing conditions, chronic illness, that sort of thing, I don't think a high deductible plan would probably be best. But you need to look at, okay, where are we typically spending money? Do I have some known issues? That kind of thing. That would definitely figure into my my decision process. Blah, blah, blah. Da, 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 da. Let's see. Okay, I'm glad you asked this. Catrice, how much did you say I can contribute to my Roth IRA? In my brokerage account, the max says 7K per year. How do I invest more? Okay, I was talking about a Roth IRA when I gave y'all the number 23,500. There's a $7,500 catch up provision for the folks that are over 50. That's a Roth 401k. That is an employer sponsored plan. A Roth IRA, the cap is it still 7,000? I thought it was up to 8, but 7 or $8,000 a year. And you cannot invest more once you reach that cap. So both a Roth IRA and a Roth 401k, the money is tax-free growth, but they have different contribution limits. Okay. Du- 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 du. Okay. I think that's everybody's questions. Uh, I love this for you. Good evening. After switching companies, I moved the 401k to a rollover IRA where I control the investments. The money moved from a conservative investment to some good quality stocks. So worth it. I love that for you. Okay. 7,000 for your Roth IRA. You can, well, for any IRA, you can contribute 7,000 if you are under 50, and then there is a catch-up provision for people over 50. Okay. All right. I love that you were able to do that. And honestly, that is low key what I did with my old 403b, and I did that with my teacher retirement. So there's been a couple of times on this channel that I have mentioned that I personally cannot get Social Security um, because I did not pay into Social Security. I paid into the Texas Teacher Retirement Plan. And when I moved abroad, I had to weigh some personal things, and I opted to roll over my contributions to um Texas Teacher Retirement. I rolled that over into a rollover IRA. And basically, uh, I was then responsible for choosing investments and all of that. And so far, I think I've done better than the state of Texas would have done by me. But that was or it is still incredibly risky. Um, yeah. But there is, so going back to one of the things that Guy said in his post, the idea that like you don't have control over what you do. um there's some truth to that, but uh doing a rollover, particularly those of you that have old 401ks out there that you never dealt with, you get the statement every month and you just put it in the drawer with all those other statements that you haven't opened, that account. You could be rolling it over and making some choices that fit your situation and hopefully grow your money. Okay. I do not see any more questions. And as soon as I said that, H&D got in here with a question. What do you do if you want to begin moving funds from a 401k pre-tax to a Roth post-tax within my retirement plan? You have to pay the taxes. And so you hear people talk about a Roth conversion uh, or a backdoor Roth, depending on your situation. But basically, in essence, what you can do is move the money to an IRA, and then okay, this is the very broad thing. Please Google. But the basic idea is you open an IRA account, you roll over money from the 401k into the IRA, and you don't do anything. You immediately open a Roth IRA and you put the money in the Roth. In order to do that, you have to pay taxes. So, one of the things and this is a more complicated thing and would probably require some professional assistance, is figuring out how much to convert to keep your tax bill from being stupid high. Because remember, you've basically got to, you're not going to cash it out in the same way you would if you were taking that money to go on vacation, but you are liquidating something in the 401k and you're putting that money in the IRA that then converts it to a Roth. You make a Roth contribution. The amount that you do, you have to pay taxes on that. Depending on, and I will say I'm not as well versed with Roth 401ks. I assume you can do a similar kind of conversion. I don't believe that you wouldn't be able to. But again, if you are moving over $23,500, Uncle Sam wants his income tax on that $23,500. If you add that 23.5 to your already existing income that year, is that going to bump you into a higher tax bracket? If it's a year where you're not really bringing in money, that's a great year to do a conversion. So, in essence, that's what you want to do is a Roth conversion. And you can Google if you want to convert to a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. If you plan to retire early, would you prioritize a Roth IRA or individual brokerage account to have accessible funds? I would prioritize both of them. But the here's the thing. The Roth IRA, you kind of don't want to take money out of that before you really have to. Because let's say I retire at 27. Okay. One, I haven't had that many years to make contributions to my Roth IRA. But two, I would like the money in my Roth IRA to stay in there as long as possible to grow because I never have to pay tax on the growth. So I would probably choose the brokerage over that because I kind of want my money to stay in the Roth as long as it possibly can. So, and remember, y'all are just asking me my opinion because I am not licensed. None of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. So we don't get nobody confused. Um, okay. All right. So I don't see any more questions. Just a reminder that I am going to be hosting the Get Started Investing Challenge, where we talk about 401ks, IRAs, uh, taxable brokerage accounts. We talk about all of that stuff. We talk about rollovers and all of that good stuff. First full week in November. And if you want to know when uh, registration opens, because it's not going to be while I'm still here in Scotland. But if you want to be notified of when registration opens, um, get on the mailing list. There is a link in the description of this video to join the mailing list. But the next investing challenge, where we go through all of this stuff, is going to be at the beginning of November. We are getting close to the middle of September. I would guess that registration would open in the next couple of weeks. Again, the people on the email list will be the first ones to know. So if you want to be in the know, get on the email list. And if you are like, but you know what? I don't want to be with the group. I want to just talk to you on my own. Yes, I still do one-on-one sessions. There is a link in the description, or you can go to the website, piggygirltravelstheworld.com/coaching. So yeah, that I hope I hope we've kind of recognized what is it? We don't celebrate National 401k Day, but we not the word recognize. What is perimenopause is doing a number on my vocabulary and my ability to recall words. Recognize? What is it called? Like when I don't know. I can't think of the word, but hopefully this was the proper tribute to National 401k Day. I don't know. It is 1 a.m. here in Scotland. It is time for me to go to bed. I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. And I will see y'all back in Mexico City next week. Y'all take care.